25 words to get 10 answers. Get them all.
Who else is on it? I'm gonna close this.
There you go.
You're on camera.
Morning, sorry to anyone who was messed up this morning with the incorrect.
Recording
I screw up.
Morning.
Get Patty's face. Yeah. Good morning. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yep.
Yes.
Hi.
I'm just gonna mute anyone who's on that's not a member right now.
Thank you.
Who are considered members? Me?
Uh, No, it's the members of the traffic safety work group.
Okay, thank you.
I believe Ray, somebody was gonna try to come on for DPW. Hold on. Yes, the old bad one. Give me 1 second.
Looks like we have a quorum and can probably proceed.
Ray's trying to get on,
Oh, okay. Well,
and Mickey's coming on right now too.
perfect. All right, I'll get started here. Good morning. This open meeting of the Nantucket Traffic Safety Work Group is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. We're convening by video conference via Zoom app. As posted on the town website, please note the meeting is being recorded. All attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware the folks might be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything you broadcast may be captured by the recording. I will introduce each speaker. Please speak clearly in a way to help ensure accurate meeting minutes. Please mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking, and please speak through the chair. And finally, each vote in this meeting will be taken by roll call vote. And with that, is there any public comment for items that are not otherwise on the agenda? You can wave your real hand on camera or your virtual raise hand feature, and I'll recognize you. Not seeing any.
Can you hear me? I'm sorry, I raised my hand.
Yeah,
Walter Flaherty.
yeah, go ahead, Walter.
I had sent in a letter about a month ago, thought you were having a meeting in July. And it probably has something to do with item number 9.
Right.
As a backup, if that doesn't pass, I just thought maybe temporarily, until we figure out that intersection, we could get some no parking signs for either side of the
Well-
road from Myakama Road up to Nanina Drive.
Why don't we just talk about that on what's on the agenda?
All right, then, thank you. I
you.
wasn't sure if,
Okay, sure thing.
thank you.
Any other public comment? Hearing none, we'll move on to the first item of official business, which is to review the request for no parking in front of 49 Fair Street. Erica, do you want to take care of the screen share, please?
Did you lose me?
No, but
Okay.
you're having feedback.
Yeah, there's a lot of echo,
Okay, I'm gonna turn my phone off.
right?
Okay, I
Yeah,
was just afraid I couldn't log in properly.
okay, could you tell me how to, Ms. Schoen?
Hi, my name is Patricia Shane,
Shane, thank you.
SCHEN. Yes, hi.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. Again, this is Patricia Shane. I'm a homeowner on Fair Street. I've owned a home, 2 homes actually, on Fair Street for over 21 years, each with off-street parking. I care deeply for Nantucket, and I respect all that you guys do. I have never, in over 21 years, been involved in a civic process or complaint. I have obeyed laws. We've done everything we can to maintain the integrity of this beautiful island. My husband got sick and died here and is buried here. And I have a deep appreciation for the integrity and the history of this beautiful island. I apologize for the way I applied for this complaint. It was a fillable link, as you guys obviously know. I went on the website, I believe it was over the 4th of July weekend, over much angst and conversation with my family, because we at 49 Fair Street had been inundated since this summer with cars, trucks, SUVs that are constantly parking up on the sidewalk of my historic home, which includes one of 7 remaining Dutch elm trees on this beautiful island. I didn't want to run up and down the street and yell at people. I didn't put notes on cars requesting people to park properly. That is not my job. I'm a homeowner. All I want to do is to maintain the integrity of my home, make sure that all the local ordinances and laws are obeyed, and continue living peacefully at 49 Fair Street. I will note that in my 18 years at 39 Fair Street, the road is a little wider. I believe where I am presently for these past 3 years, this is probably the most narrow section of Fair Street. It's a whole different ballgame. Never did anybody really ever park on my sidewalk up at 39 Fair Street. As a matter of fact, one of my dear neighbors, who I don't know how many years he has resided here, Ken Beaugrand, he parked in my house for 18 years happily and never got up on my sidewalk. He has an off-street parking, but he and his wife have 2 cars here. They're full-time residents. And he had his law-abiding right with his permit to park on the street. And today, I'm just asking you for guidance and to hold my hand a little bit, because I'm unsure of what the local laws and regulations are concerning parking on the sidewalk in the historic district and in Nantucket core in general, and in the maintaining of the integrity of this huge old tree. I am not allowed to touch the tree. I have met the tree warden, or the tree whisperer of Nantucket. I have tremendous respect for him. I am hands off. But what worries me is what is going on with the constant driving over my sidewalk, parking inches from the roots of the trees. The bricks are coming up. Trucks park here. And, you know, this is going back to the 4th of July when my whole family was here with little babies. I can't open my front door without being invaded with cars, feet or sometimes inches from my front steps, exhaust, car idling, car packing and going, and
Um,
then driving
yeah.
across my sidewalk onto the road and leaving. So, you know, I really don't use the street that much because I have off-street parking here. I use the street when I have service providers to come and do work at my house. This past week, I've had a lot of service providers. I'm here, I'm off work from my normal job, and I'm getting things done in anticipation of a renovation. And I decided to park on this street. I always did on 39 Fair. It wasn't a big deal. I was afraid to park there just watching all these cars who were always parking up on the sidewalk. I thought, oh, I guess cars can't park on the street here. Well, I tried it this past weekend. I have a Jeep.
Shane, I think we understand the
Okay.
request. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
And so we will open this up to discussion for the committee as well as for the public. I will just give you a little background. As you're aware, folks, you know, parking on sidewalks
Yes.
in Nantucket is a little bit of a third rail issue, if you will. It's been going on for, you know, since vehicles have, I think, been allowed on the island.
Sure.
My understanding, and the chief of police is also here, is that of the interpretation of the bylaw is that it is permitted as long as the sidewalk is not completely blocked.
Agree.
And
Yep, I understand
if it is
that.
completely blocked, I believe you could
Yep. After
call-
375, I understand that.
call the police.
Yes.
And so with respect to your comments and this, you know, after a full discussion regarding the tree, this might be something that perhaps we refer to the tree advisory committee.
Yes.
And maybe they'd have a recommendation to protect the trees for a certain
Absolutely.
no parking zone.
Yeah.
But other than that, let's have a discussion, and I just want to
Absolutely.
just respond to those
Yes.
couple of points.
I had a basket full of issues and I apologize. I
No,
didn't.
you don't
know
need to
how-
apologize
Yeah.
at all. Not at all.
My presentation looks so unprofessional and I apologize. I'm an attorney. I have never been involved in this. So I'll resubmit in a, you know, lip smacking way if you want me
You
to.
don't have to.
No, I don't think, I
Okay,
think
thank
that
you.
everything's fine, and I don't think you need to apologize. We understand your concerns and you've followed the process the town has, and no apologies are needed.
Thank you.
Is there any other members of the public that wish to speak on the matter before us regarding the request to eliminate some on-street parking in front of 49 Fair Street? Mr. Wunderlich?
You just need to unmute.
He's on mute.
Hi,
Floor is yours.
Can you
thank
just
you.
state your name
Thank
for
you
the
for the-
record, please?
I'm sorry,
Can you just state your name for the record, please?
I'm David Wunderlich, and my partner and I live on 46 Fair Street. It's across the street from 49. We bought our place in 2019, and we have 2 young kids here. We primarily are summer residents, but we're here throughout. Over COVID, we came here quite a bit. And from our perspective, we wanted to make the following points. So there has been parking in this location for at least 10 years, probably more than that. Bill Klein, who's on the call, mentioned they've been here 10 years, and he mentioned that there's been parking for all of that time. We do not have parking on our property and bought our house relying on street parking in front of 49 Fair, which is what we're talking about. If approved, this would leave 2 full blocks with no parking on Fair Street, in which we're the middle of. There was one other spot removed last year, just a little in this same block for a driveway access, I believe. All of our immediate areas seem to agree that they and their guests would use this parking, continue to use this parking, as well as the numerous service people who come take care of our homes. Parking's very popular on Fair Street, and it seems to be a limited number of spaces. As far as curb parking, there are quite a few other streets in Nantucket that allow curb parking. And we've noticed that when you can park on the sidewalk there because there's 8 feet of sidewalk between the outside of her front porch and the curb. So parking one tire on the sidewalk takes up about 18 inches of space. So that allows quite a bit of clearance for pedestrians. There are a few bricks that have come up from the elm, but it doesn't really obstruct pedestrians the way many other elm trees do on this island. And we love our elm tree, the town's elm tree too there. It's very beautiful. Let's see. I wanted to just address a couple points because about the porch. It's elevated about 4 feet, and its access with that 6 or more feet of space would seem to allow access to the stairs and a raised platform above the view. And there's a good 6 feet between the front of the yellow line and the driveway at 49 Fair of no parking on a yellow line. It seems like, decades of parking here on this street have not affected this elm tree. It seems to be thriving. And so we just wanted to mention that and advocate for retaining the 2 parking places on this side of the street. It does, if curb parking can be allowed, it does allow for the safe passage of vehicles. They don't have to go in as a moving vehicle up on our sidewalk. And when I would think for any type of emergency vehicles that would be larger, it would allow better access and much safer for pedestrians on both sides of the street.
Thank you very much for your comments. I appreciate your participation. Is there any other members of the public that wish to speak on the pending matter?
Yes, this is Bill Klein.
Go ahead, Mr. Klein.
Yes, I've been living at 48 Fair Street for 10 years now and been watching the parking practices of the general public, both on and off season. And one conclusion I reach is that the whole neighborhood of Fair Street and Pine Street is parking deficient in the summer. And it really is a tough situation. The last thing we need is a reduction by 4 spaces of this proposal. So I would strongly urge the traffic committee to just resist the removal of 4 additional spaces. We've lost a lot of spaces on Fair Street due to the installation of driveways. So this would be in addition to that, and I don't think we can really afford it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Ms. Moss?
Hi, my name is Ms. Tara Moss. I'm the daughter of Patricia Shane. I lived with my mother at 49 Fair Street for almost 2 years during the COVID pandemic with my 2 infant children. I would just like to comment a clarification. It's not the removal of 4 spots. And I also think something that is helpful for the committee to consider is perhaps not necessarily the removal of the 2 spots that are before 49 Fair Street, but encouraging, just like on Eagle Street and other small lanes where there's narrow pathways, compact cars only, as well as having signage that says no parking on the sidewalk, because I will say firsthand, having been in Nantucket just a week ago, I was not able to take my stroller out of our basement and use it to be able to bring it past the sidewalk because the cars were protruding so closely to the home, like inches away from the home. And also having physically been in the home when the parking is happening on these historic sidewalks, my mother's home is 200 years old and it rattles. It rattles to the point where glass is shaking inside the home because the foundation is connected to the sidewalk. I also want to note that in Chapter 375, Chapter 4, Section K, there's a note about the importance on a one-way street. There needs to be 10 feet wide of clearance. And I think it's important for the committee to consider this because when cars are legally parked, not intruding upon the sidewalk, it is very hard with oversized SUVs for cars to get through in a 10-foot wide space. I would argue, I'm not clear, I have not personally measured the space, but it needs to be 10 feet wide. Again, it's not the removal of 4 parking spots, it would be 2 parking spots. And I would also urge that if the spots are kept, perhaps the parking spots are limited to compact cars and there is clear signage, as there is on other streets throughout the historic district, that cars are to be parked on the street, not on the historic brick sidewalks next to historic homes and trees that are being negatively impacted by this oversized car parking. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from the public? Hearing none, I'll turn it over to discussion from the work group. And I'll just offer first that, you know, we have, while we're all familiar with the area, some of the points that you just raised and the extent of where you might be suggesting additional parking. You might have a stronger application if you were to have an actual surveyed plan that you were to propose with an application that, you know, laid out those exact distances. I don't want to send you down a direction, you know, follow the rest of the discussion and see where you're gonna, where it comes out, but it might be something that you know, might consider. Whether it would make a difference at the end of the day, I don't know, but the information before us, I would say, is it's you know, challenging to have a clear understanding of exactly, you know, where a yellow line exists, would be removed, the exact number of parking spaces. So I do see that, you know, additional information might help come to perhaps a different conclusion than we're there, but we'll still have this discussion. I'll tell you, I don't feel that I would have enough information to be able to support the request. Simply not, is it 4 cars? Is it 1 car? Exactly where are you proposing to take it away or put it to? And again, if you're going to use the basis for, or if there is a chance that there are town trees that are being impacted as this, I would very much like to hear from the town advisory committee if they had a recommendation. And again, if you were to have a plan prepared that showed the location of the trees and some distances, that might help support the matter. And finally, I just would want to be sure that you're aware that this group is advisory. We don't actually have the ability to you know, remove or add parking. Ultimately, any decisions by this group are advisory to the town manager, who then you know, at her discretion, whether things go to the select board. And ultimately any removal of on-street parking is a select board decision. So this is sort of the first step in the process. And you know, having been involved for a number of years on this, there is, as you could just hear from tonight's discussion, there is of course extreme sensitivity to the loss of parking and just parking in general, you know, downtown. So there is a balance to be struck here, and it's not at all to be, you know, we understand the historic nature and ability of, you know, to traverse the sidewalks. If a sidewalk is completely blocked, and certainly that is a matter that, you know, for the police department. And with that, I'll open it up if any other work group members would like to make any comments. Mr. Burns?
If it's all right, Mr. Chair, I think I agree with you. I've had to do a little bit of digging to try to understand this space. I mean, I've I've done a lot of parking utilization studies in this area, well, all over the parking district, and I do remember this area being very, very tight corridor, curb to curb. I'm kind of familiar with these two spaces there by the tree. It just um, when I measured it off of aerial photography, I got like 30 feet of parkable space, which is a little substandard for two spaces. It can work, but I got about 30 feet. So I don't know if that's something for us to consider if, based on recommendations of the tree advisory committee, we want to, shorten that space somewhat and reduce it down to one space, but it might warrant a site visit. And then I think that's probably a good step, is to get input from the tree advisory committee to see how impactful parking is on the roots of the system. But I think everything that was mentioned, everybody was right. There's just a dearth of parking in this area. It's just looking at old utilization studies, it's adequate, it's used. But there's not a lot of opportunities in the area. So I could see how impactful it would be removing the space and understand the impacts of keeping the spaces. So this is and looking at the width of the corridor. I don't know if Chief Cranston is on the call. I don't know what his needs would be, but it does look like the sidewalk on the other side of the street would need to be mounted in order to pass any type of vehicle that's parked in that space. I don't know if he's got a take on that, but I'd be interested to hear what Fire has to say about this.
Yeah, no, I mean, certainly, I don't think if we eliminated parking from the sidewalk completely, we would not be able to get an emergency vehicle through there during our busiest times of the year. So again, I would have to see the actual dimensions and those kind of things. This is like very much in general terms to me. I don't know what the exact dimensions are of that particular area on Fair Street, but certainly I would hesitate to eliminate parking from the sidewalk entirely, just so that we could get emergency vehicles through there.
Thank you. Ms. Mooney?
Thank you. I just wanted to note that currently the tree advisory committee they don't have enough members to be in action. So it won't, I think they'll have 3 members by August 16th. So it wouldn't be able to be heard anytime soon, just FYI.
Thank you.
Any other committee members? So it sounds to me, Ms. Shane, you could, this could either, there could be a motion, we could go to a vote, or if you wanted to try to put together more information, we could hold it over. Obviously, I don't think that there's enough information or support for our recommendation. I can't speak for everybody. I can only tell you that from what I've heard in my own position, that to recommend a change here, I think we would really need to, and if you would want it to ultimately pass muster at the higher levels, I really think that you would need a stronger application with more information.
Can I interrupt?
Yes, please.
So how about we just provide better enforcement? I never see parking guys on the street. Never. This year, never. And better enforcement goes a long way because people get $50 tickets.
Well, I mean, certainly free to call the station.
They have to call them? Can't they just do their job?
Chief Pittman, but I know that they're doing the best they can down there.
I'm sure they are. I apologize. I don't mean that in an interrogatory way at all, but just simple enforcement. And then maybe these trucks and SUVs won't land in front of my door and won't cause a hazard. And, I can open up my front door and get some fresh air.
And again, I think if it's a complete blockage, then then that's an issue that to call, and I don't know what else really to say there, though, the chief is here on the call, and perhaps, there's an ability for, the patrols to, work that area. I don't know what the extent of what they do there is, but,
Are you in the residential parking district?
Me, Patty?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Okay,
I'm
then
in the residential historic.
I
Yeah,
assure you, there are patrols there.
Yeah. okay.
There's bike officers.
There
that-
always have been. I've gotten a few tickets, trust me.
Okay.
thank you.
May I just say a word?
Yes.
On the police, we see them almost every day coming by here. We've gotten tickets also, and just for being over the line, sometimes, which is fine. Happy to live by the rules, but
Got it. Thank you.
we see them.
Gotcha. Okay, so with that,
I would also just encourage a site visit if somebody can come out and look at it in person.
is there any motion for any action on this item? Hearing none. Ms. Shane, I'm not hearing, it doesn't sound like we're gonna take any action on this request.
I appreciate you listening to me.
Okay,
Appreciate the process. Thank you.
we understand. Thank you. With that, we will move on to item 2. We'll review requests for, we have there's a group of 3 from the Sconset Civic Association, and I see that we have Ms. Filipski on. Would you like to present these?
Part number, the next one is 8 Nantucket Ave.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that, Ms. Filipski. 8 Nantucket Ave. And we have someone from the public for this matter.
Yeah, you've got Mary Lou Sims.
You're muted, Ms. Sims.
How about now?
Yes, that's better. Thank you. Sorry for jumping ahead there.
No, that's okay. I live at 8 Nantucket Avenue, which is on the cliff, and I'm on the corner of Grant Avenue and Nantucket. Nantucket is a 1 block long, one-way street between Grant and Cliff Road, directly across from where North Liberty comes into Cliff Road. It is a very dangerous corner because many people, both pedestrians, bikers, families with strollers, families who walk 5 across, come up our street, turn left onto Grant to go down to Steps Beach. Cars and trucks are coming down Grant, and they are coming down at quite a fast speed. They go around the corner, and this is an accident waiting to happen. These cars and trucks, it's a blind corner, and they cannot see around the corner to see the people coming up the one-way street the wrong direction going toward the beach. And my neighbors and I have been concerned about this for years. We've owned this house for almost 20 years. We bought it in 2004. We have a do not enter sign down at the corner of Cliff and Nantucket, but you can't see it. It's hidden. And if you're coming from town, say up Cliff Road, and you turn left, some people don't see that it's a one-way street. So that's another issue. So we've got 2 issues. We've really got 3 issues. And then the third issue is people who park at the corner of Nantucket and Grant on Nantucket, because when people do that, it narrows the street even more. So you have less area for cars and pedestrians. But the thing that worries me the most is the pedestrians and the cars and trucks having a head-on collision at this space. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you for your submission and your time. We certainly understand that,
It's really an
congestion
area.
in that area and the pedestrians and the lack of space for sort of everybody.
And also, we really need a one-way arrow, either placed maybe even where North Liberty comes into Cliff, pointing toward Nantucket Avenue, or one at the foot of Nantucket Avenue at the intersection with Cliff. That is something really that should be done like ASAP. Just this morning, I was coming down Nantucket Avenue and an older woman was on a bike and the road was so narrow that I had to stop and she had to stop because we couldn't pass each other.
We understand. We get it.
You get it? Good.
Yeah, thank you. Let's see
Okay.
what we can sort of, what can
Thank
be
you.
addressed. And is there any other members of the public that wish to speak on the requests for one-way arrows and some signage and yellow line? Seeing
May I
none.
just put in one more plug, which is
Sure.
that my front door is on Nantucket Avenue and there's no yellow line protecting right away to my front door. So I have often had trucks and cars blocking my front door.
Okay, so
That's not a safety issue necessarily. It's just a nuisance.
okay, thanks. So
That's
you,
another thing.
I know that you were on for the last matter, and so
All right.
if your access is blocked, then that's a matter for a call to the station for the
Police station?
for the police. That's correct.
Okay, so that's not a matter where I can get a yellow line painted in front of my.
Well, we'll
front-
have that discussion next, but if
Okay.
you're, cannot
Okay.
get in and out and it's absolutely blocked, then that's
It's
one.
kind of
matter.
like killing two birds with one stone if you put
Now,
a yellow line there.
As you just heard, that there's a lot of sensitivity to any loss of parking, and
I get it. I get it. Okay.
so we'll start off first with, again, I think the yellow line request for a yellow line.
Mm.
Likewise to last application, you could come back with more information that showed dimensions and where you would want it exactly. And that might help your application. It might not, and you might end up, going through more work to no end result, but maybe that would help.
That
My
doesn't sound
sense
very
is that,
encouraging.
any loss of parking, again, that as you heard, we're advisory to the select board. And so you're gonna, you would have to justify, the loss of parking isn't something that installation of a yellow line that's going to cause a loss of parking. They're going to want more information that you would end up having to do for that. That being said, in this area, a single yellow line right there. I'm not so sure that, that there would be support for that, but I'll open it up for discussion for the work group. And then I think we'll go through each of your items one at a time to make sure they get proper review and discussion and see what we can do to do the best we can to address what we can.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
Certainly. Is there any discussion or support for a yellow line to be painted in front of the steps that are on the photo in the packet? Mr. Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just, again, looking at the photography of the roadway. It doesn't look like there's a lot of yellow lines at all along the strip. So I'd almost refer to Ray and DPW to see if this is maybe something that warrants a review and just application of the, oh, help me out. Is it the yellow line policy? There's some kind of guidelines for applying yellow lines for driveways and stoops and things like this. And it probably warrants the entire corridor getting a review, not just this one special location. Because I don't know if I see it for driveways or really any location. So this might be something where we do a field visit and then bring this back for next month.
I would love you to come up here and look at the situation.
I
Both
did
for
a
the
drive
traffic
through.
safety and the driveway.
I'm familiar and have driven through there, and I mean, if anyone wants to go there, I don't think we want to schedule a meeting as a group, but certainly, members, if you want to, feel that before they could render a decision on this, they needed to take another month and have a look at it and further discuss it, then we could certainly entertain that as a consideration.
Well, I hope that with
Ms.
regard to the safety.
Ms. Sines, I'm gonna, at this point,
I hope with regard to the safety issue, that you do something sooner than later so that someone is not killed.
understood. Are there any other work group members that have any suggestions or motion with respect to installation of a yellow line in this area?
It's not just the yellow.
Yeah.
line.
Well, we're gonna go, again, Chief Pittman.
Yeah, I did go up there and take a look. The issue on the safety issue is, there is a regulation about parking within so close to an intersection. I mean, we could put yellow lines, although the nature of the roadway, I don't think they're gonna last long. But I think you could put yellow lines 20 feet from the intersection, but even bigger issue is the sight lines. Those hedges really need to be trimmed down to 30 inches and 20 foot back from the apex of the intersection on both sides of the road. That's what's creating the hazard are the hedges, not necessarily the road. So I think if we do the yellow lines, we need to deal with the hedges as well.
It's not going to stop the trucks and the cars from zooming around there, and it's
Okay,
not going to stop the pedestrians.
Ms. Symes,
from coming
please,
up the
Ms. Symes,
street.
I'm gonna mute you.
It's not going to stop
I'm gonna mute
that.
you. Look, this is a public meeting that's being conducted. You had your say, and I'm giving you a lot of leeway, but please don't interrupt the members. Please stop. So at this point, we have a bylaw that requires hedges within a certain feet of an intersection to be no more than 36 inches from the height of the roadway. And that's what's being referred to. And I think that that's part of the safety concern. If we're going to look at this all cohesively, I think that is something that we would need to address. The recollection on the yellow line from the intersection, I can't, and Ms. Sylvia, maybe you could help me whether it was 10 or 20 feet back. But again, I think on a one-way street like this, I'm not sure that that's really gonna make a difference on the entrance there. And to Ms. Symes' concern for her door. But again, I think we would probably need a plan that would show the hedges, and understand both sides of the road and the overall width before we could. And again, I don't think that it's going to get very far with the select board if we didn't, if we rendered an opinion that resulted in a loss of parking without having that kind of information. I don't believe that it's likely to make it further. And I would need to know all of that information in order to make any kind of a recommendation. Is there anything further from the work group on suggestions regarding the yellow line? It doesn't sound like you have support. Thank you, Ms. Mooney. So here there is a plan. It's somewhat dated, and perhaps conditions have changed from 1999, but I think in this area things probably haven't, and that hedge is actually within the right of way of Nantucket Ave in front of the house there. And so that could, there could potentially be a encroachment issue. I see the porch is actually only 2.7 feet off of that property line. So there's, this drawing doesn't show the actual edge of asphalt, which is clearly, it does. I'm sorry. I misinterpreted. It does show the edge of asphalt. And you can see that the hedge is located between the actual property line and the edge of asphalt. So, perhaps you'd like to go back to this particular surveyor and have an updated plan done and come back to show where you would like the yellow lines and try to make a case for that, as well as that I suspect might lead to perhaps that hedge is whether the select board would take that up as an encroachment matter as well. I don't know. But I'm not, it doesn't seem like there's support for a yellow line along there.
Mr. Chair, I would just say, just for, again, I'd like one more month to take a look at this. I think there's probably a number of locations along here, along the stoops and driveways where it does warrant a yellow line, since there is parking along the west side, I guess, of the roadway.
Okay. Is that amenable to everybody else? So we'll hold that one piece of this. We'll go through all of the items. And then we'll hold this onto the agenda for August. Slow down sign. The other request is for signs asking for drivers to slow down. Mr. Sylvia, are there already any signs in this area?
We don't have many for slow down.
Yeah.
Such narrow roads, they don't
Right.
really. And
And I think
usually,
we also try to be very sensitive to additional signage, you know, on Nantucket. And is there any support for additional signage regarding slow down or speed?
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion to take no action on that request.
Okay. Is there a second, since a motion was made?
I'll second.
Motion been made and seconded. Mr. Burns, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Rowland,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
aye.
Chief Pittman,
Aye.
Chief Cranston,
Aye.
Chair votes aye. And then we have a request for a one-way arrow sign at the corner of Nantucket Ave and Cliff Road.
Mr. Chair, again, I'd maybe hold this over for next month.
Okay.
I'd like to, maybe Ray, we can take a look at that. Just looking at
Yep.
photography, it looked the sign was a little tilted. Maybe there's a better placement for it to make it visual from
Okay.
both approaches. So I think that
Agreed.
could probably be addressed, but I'd like one more month to confirm that.
Sure. Mr. Sylvia,
Yeah, and we've done this at a lot of places. And if you look in that picture, there looks like there was an existing one on there. Doesn't mean that it was there last time we replaced it. So that's a simple fix. We can just throw a one-way sign on it. It is a little spun, but you still should be able to see it from both directions. But if a one-way sign on the side of that same post isn't that big of a deal, I can throw that up anytime.
yeah, my sense is we would need to hold that. I think that a sign on a one-way road coming out like that personally would be beneficial.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
should this be something we leave to the discretion of DPW to correct?
I think so. If they think it was already there before too.
Okay.
Anyone else have any different feeling on the addition of the one-way sign? Okay, so Ms. Symes, again, we certainly appreciate your time and understand the concerns. We will hold over the matter and our transportation planner will have a look in the area and see what we might be able to come up with, and perhaps communicate directly with him in terms of where a yellow line might go, and we'll take it back up at the August meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we'll move on for a request for traffic calming devices on Gold Star and Milestone Lane. This request was made by Mr. Valero. Is there anybody from the public here to speak on this matter? Seeing none. They paid their check, and I believe the next step in the process is for the town to do the traffic count. And that's correct. I saw, Mr. Burns, you had some numbers from 8 years ago, maybe.
Yeah, I think this is, I can't remember if we had an application in 2015 that warranted the collection of data. I didn't do that deep of research, but I did have speed and volume counts for this area from 2015.
Can we set that stuff back out and update it?
We could. They paid that. It just I don't think we've had the situation where we've had like a repeat application for the same area.
I mean,
I
if it
almost
was
feel bad for
within,
taking
if
their
it was
money.
within a year or two or something, then maybe that would be a bit of double jeopardy. That's kind of seems like if someone's coming in with something 8 years later, conditions have maybe changed, and if they're gonna go through, they followed the proper process, it kind of seems like we would have the obligation to at least have a look at it. Ms. Mooney, did you have something you wanted to add?
I was just gonna say that, I used to live in that area, and I would say that the amount of traffic that has been cutting through there has exponentially increased. I drive that route every day too. And I would really like to see updated data.
Mr. Burns, is that something we can put on your queue?
Yeah, we can try to do that for this summer if this goes into September. I hope that's still acceptable.
I think it'd be good if we could capture August.
Yeah, it's busy traffic counting season, so I'll try to see how that fits into the queue.
Understood. Anybody have anything further on Gold Star? Okay, so we'll move on now to the Sconset Civic Associations. Filipski, nice to see you.
Hi, thank you for having me. I filed these requests when I was still president. Carol Greenberg is online here, who is succeeding me, but because I started this process, I thought I should continue with it, and then Carol can take it over. You'll see that there are 3 sections that I want to talk about, and we'll start with 5 Main Street, which is, oh, thank you, Erica, which is a section between Park Place and Shell Street. Shell Street is one of the main ways that you come into Sconset from the north. This is opposite the post office. This area of town has approximately 14 parking places, very tight for people coming to the market, getting their post office, or going to Claudette's to pick up a sandwich. So very high intensity traffic between bikes, people, and cars. So we're noticing, and neighbors have informed us, that this particular area, I can't really call it a block, but it can provide about 3 spaces, that we're seeing people who are parking there for hours at a time, whether they're going to the Bluff Walk, hundreds of people that do that, or whether they're going to the beach, or there is a man who paints and has a pickup truck and has his easel set and is there for 5 to 6 hours at a time. So we wanted you to consider that this should be a shorter term parking area. We do have areas that are like this, that are 30 minutes or less, just to facilitate traffic in and out. Because then people start parking in front of the bookstore, and then the bus can't make the corner. And I have to commend the bike safety officers this summer, are fantastic at giving out tickets and encouraging people to do the right thing. But in this particular case, we thought it.
Ms. Filipski, I think we've got it.
Okay.
I don't mean to cut you off, but
No, that's fine.
I think we're all familiar with the spot, and it does seem, at least to me, to be a bit of a loophole to have no parking controls for that particular spot. Work group members, is there support to make that a 30-minute spot or any other timed type parking?
Mr. Chair, I checked my parking inventory and I showed that as just quote unquote restricted.
Right.
I'm not quite sure whether it was prohibited at that location in the past and we want to allow parking. I'm just a little confused with the request. Are we allowing parking at that location and restricting it to 30 minutes?
That's the request.
Okay, but it is no parking right now, correct?
No, it's unrestricted parking right now, even though you have it as right now, there's no signage, or from what I'm hearing, it makes it a challenge to get enforcement because of the fact that, anyone from the public wouldn't know. So it sounds like we need to establish what the timed parking would be for that particular space. And I don't think we're changing, I think it sounds like maybe it was at some time, perhaps there's a sign missing. I don't know what it used to be. What is it, how is it signed, Mr. Sylvia, in the rest of that particular area? Is it signed in front of the market as 30-minute?
I believe you have actually across the street, you have a loading zone / 15-minute on the other, across from the market. I thought it was 1 hour by the post office, but I could be wrong. It might be 30-minute. I have to look at my maps. That area right there, I don't believe, and I've been on signs for 30 years. I don't remember ever installing a sign there, and it'd be a tough spot to put one because of that hedge. So I'd have to look at it to see if we could squeeze a sign there where it's not going to get hit every time a car pulls in too, because otherwise then you're losing the sign anyway. I'm sure we could, if I'd have to look at it to see if I have enough space between the asphalt and the hedge to install a sign. Because if it was no park, it would have been a yellow line, and I don't have that on my map at all.
My sense is you maybe even if it was to go anywhere along there in the middle of it, anything that put, and I would certainly defer to the chief, but as long as there was some notification, it's such a small stretch that there was a sign that said that this is a time, whatever the time is that we might come up with, I think that it could be reasonably interpreted to be that stretch. But so that says 15-minute, I think.
It says 10.
10. My inclination would be to, I'm certainly appreciate the good work the Civic Association is doing, and sort of looking at these areas, if their sense is that a 30-minute sign there would be effective. I personally don't have a problem with that, but I open that up to the rest of the work group. Motion, is there any thoughts or motion for that amount of time or any other time? Restricting it altogether to no parking? It seems a little extreme to me if it works. But
I could make a motion to make that a 30-minute parking area.
Thank you. And is there a second?
I'll second that.
So the motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? And we would just defer to DPW to work to sign it, and perhaps just double check with NPD that it's in a manner that they could consider enforceable. Chief Pittman, do you have a concern here? You look a little perplexed.
Looking through the regulations real quickly on something. So,
Mr. Burns, do you have something you wanted to add while he's checking that?
Yeah, I was checking my parking restrictions in this area too, just to verify, and it does seem like there's a scattered amount of time restrictions in this area, and I don't know how that impacts enforcement. I'm just, Chief, I'm trying to be easy on you.
Right.
Because there's 10, 15, 30, 1 hour, like it's right in that cluster. There's an array of times, and it'd be probably a good idea to maybe consolidate them. And I'm showing a 15-minute parking on that side of the street, near where the loading zone is. 15-minute parking there. Opposite the street, right by the store, there's 30 minutes, and then by the post office, I see 10 minutes. And then around the corner, by the roundabout or the road, the circle, there's 1 hour. So
That's
maybe.
why, yeah, that's why my sense is to defer to the Civic Association that sort of knows the area so well and looks at it if it's still enforceable. But Ms. Mooney?
Thanks. I was just going to say, growing up in Sconset, I think there's different parking areas because there's different parking needs. The 10-minute around the post office is to try to get people in and out so they can get to the post office, get their mail, and move on. There's longer parking closer, further away from the market, so that people can park for longer times. And then the area that's around the market and the bookstore and Claudette's is shorter, 15 to 30 minutes, because people will just need time to get sandwiches, get milk and ice cream, and head out. At least that's the way it always used to be.
So one of the issues that comes up, and this is what caught my attention, was the 10-minute spot. our regulations don't have 10-minute spots. They only allow for 2-hour, 1-hour, 30-minute, and 15-minute spots. Now, the question is why is that important? It's important because we've switched over to electronic enforcement, and the machines are programmed with those, with the regulations in them, with those numbers, so they don't work on a 10-minute spot. So an officer has to do it by hand, which means either they don't do it, or they have to wait for an officer to come by that has an orange ticket book rather than the electronic one. So my recommendation would be to make that area consistent with what's needed for the area. And it sounds to me like it's short-term parking. Post office typically has, like downtown, 15-minute spaces right adjacent to the post office. But this market could probably use a 30-minute, and that whole court area could probably use a 30-minute restriction, and it'd be appropriate. So I would like to see it not quite as broken up as much as it is. It makes it a lot easier, because then again, whenever an officer's enforcing, if they're enforcing a space that's a 30-minute space, they have to program that into the computer or their handheld device. If the next space is a 15-minute space, they have to log out, relog back into another window that's 15-minute spaces, and it just takes a lot of time.
That's very helpful. Thank you. So it sounds to me, we had a motion on the table to make that a 30-minute space. And then perhaps we could come back to Chief Pittman's point on the other spot, but just sticking to the matter at hand, which is to directly address the request to make this spot a 30-minute space. There was a motion, and I believe there was a second. Is there any further discussion on that motion? Mr. Rowland, how do you vote?
Aye.
Chief Pittman?
Aye.
Chief Cranston?
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia?
Aye.
Mr. Burns?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. I would like to just the 10-minute sign, while it's not on the agenda item, I think we're discussing this area. Could that and should that simply be changed to a 15-minute sign? I think that if, I don't know if that takes any other action, but I think that to stay consistent and get the best enforcement, I would ask you, Ms. Greenberg and Ms. Filipski, do you have any concerns with that 5-minute adjustment to promote, I think, better enforcement?
I think it's perfect. I think Chief Pittman caught something that we were unaware of and should be consistent.
Thanks. Does anybody have any concerns with, or Mr. Sylvia, is that something you think you could just adjust, or does that take a bigger act?
No, that can be done.
And Mr. Burns, whatever updating you might have to do for your, well, I'm not sure the worksheet that you have, but okay, that sounds like a positive, a further positive outcome to look at this little area. We certainly appreciate the input from the association. And then we'll move on to the request to cut back foliage at 47 New Street within the public right of way to provide a grass shoulder for pedestrians. And so there is an aerial up on the screen, and I guess well, go ahead, Ms. Filipski, if you'd like to.
There are about 40 houses to the west of this area. So anyone who needs to walk into town needs to have unobstructed way to walk, because New Street is a major truck route as well as pedestrian and bike route. And there is no bike path that extends on Main Street or New Street. Now, the town resurfaced the road over the fall, and it's in perfect shape. And we have encouraged all the homeowners to mow their lawn and keep it low, because there are a significant amount of people with small children and dogs. So in the hope for safety, since the chief is aware that not everyone in our village goes 25 miles an hour, and that's a hill that goes down, so speed picks up easily. we recommend that the town use that right of way to cut back the bushes just to make it safer for everyone.
And just for clarity, so the rest of the shoulder seems in front of the other properties is passable, but this one, not so much.
Exactly. The bushes go to the edge of the road, and the others have not a 5 foot, but an adequate
Thank
passage.
you. Ms. Mooney?
I was just gonna say that I drove this over the weekend and can concur with Ms. Filipski that this literally one section grows right out to the edge of pavement.
So I think there's a couple things we could do. I think we could probably simply, well, the question becomes, do we need to go through the encroachment policy to have this done? Do we know where, if we were to say, make a recommendation that the brush be cut 5 feet back from the edge of the asphalt? We're confident that that wouldn't encroach on private property, I guess would be the only other question that we have there. I don't know if the town has plans for New Street on file that show the edge of asphalt in relationship to the property lines there. My sense is it's not a problem, but I think we just have to be very careful there. And procedurally, I guess I would defer to you, Ms. Mooney, as this would be a recommendation to the town manager to make that.
Personally, because this is all natural vegetation, it's not like it's
Planted,
somebody's
right? That's my
private
sense.
plantings.
Right.
I mean, I don't know if the DPW has time for this, but it would almost seem easier if they could just go in and brush cut back that back. It's just natural vegetation that's grown on the town-owned shoulder.
Thank you. I was trying to see if we had any kind of let's see, a street view there, but committee work group members, is there support for cutting back the brush, say 5 feet from the edge of asphalt in front of 47?
And Ray, does the DPW have the bandwidth for that?
Yeah, we can add this to our pocket list. We have pockets around the island, smaller pockets like this that we do. We have a list of, so we can add this to our pocket list.
Is there any concern with that? So hearing on, we'll consider that a recommendation of the DPW by unanimous consent. And then there's a request to remove encroaching gardening stakes around Sconset. So we're all familiar with the practice. Folks staking out portions of the road layout. I'd say if there's specific locations, then you'd have to bring that to the attention of the town. I'm not sure how else we'd have a blanket sort of, to address that.
Mr. Chair, in the past, when Mr. Arsenault was the DPW director, he had the opportunity to send a truck to go to the 3 main streets that we requested, and they just picked the stakes up. We've done a good job of educating people in the village. No one should be able to say they're unaware of the encroachment issue. And these are metal stakes on West Sankaty, Coffin Street, and Maury Lane, very key places to drive, and no way for a pedestrian to jump out of the way or a bicyclist to safely avoid a car, or even for an emergency vehicle to force people off the road. So for me, I would just prefer to have the DPW, if they have time, pull that. We have in the past filed encroachments, and we can do it one at a time, but just in the interest of, we're in the height of summer, and I just am asking, I guess, for a liberal use of the rule, just to see if a truck could go to those 3 spots and just pull them out, because metal stakes are very dangerous.
No, I think that was my point. You just gave us 3 spots. I think the blanket, all Wisconsin, where are the stakes.
Oh, yeah, no. I
So,
wasn't afraid
so
of
we've
that.
identified, one more time, please, West Sankaty Road.
West Sankaty, Coffin Street and Maury Lane.
Okay, we'll defer that to the DPW.
Yes,
Um,
because I don't think, I have one question. I don't think you have, I'm not sure, jurisdiction on Cannonberry Lane
That's
No,
right.
that's private.
That's right.
since it's private. So they will have to deal with that as an association themselves.
Agreed.
Art, can I,
yeah,
say
go
one
ahead,
thing
Ms.
real
Mooney.
quick? So
Yep.
back in the day, like way back in the day when John Braggington Smith still worked at the DPW, I used to print him copies of, at the time, I think it was section 132 of the town bylaw that talks about obstructions in the roadway. And he would just keep a pile of those in his truck, and he would go around, and anytime he saw metal stakes, he would pull them out, put them in his truck, not leave them where they can just be reinstalled. And if anybody had a question, he would hand them the bylaw. So they understood why he was doing what he was doing.
That's a good practice, and maybe the DPW might be able to consider that, or maybe we make a PDF and send it along. Mr. Sylvia, does that seem something the DPW could add to the list to visit those 3 sites and remove any obvious encroachment stakes?
Yeah, we can do that. If Erica, I don't know if you can, but if you want to email me that, I can.
I've already, I have it as a PDF already, so I'll send it to you.
All right. Well-oiled machine here. Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Filipski, and nice to meet you, Ms. Greenberg. And we certainly appreciate everything that the association does community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for all you do. Thank you.
Thank you. And we will move on to a request for a curb cut at 55 Union Street, which will result in the loss of an on-street parking spot. And I see that we have Mr. Brannon on with us, and Mr. Brannon, the floor is yours.
Hi, thank you, everyone, for taking the time here. I am a newbie to this process, and I am learning a lot and asking about a hot topic, which is allowing me to have a curb cut. This house, my wife, who just passed away in March, her and her partner, Penn Austin, restored it in 2014. It's from 1834, and they won an award from the NPT in 2016. And so it's very precious to me. I want to honor my wife by, maintaining the historical presence of this house. However, the parking in front of my house, I was luckily able to take this photo, but usually it's just jammed full of cars, especially during the height of the summer. And there are people that use it basically as like long-term parking. So it's usually like work vans that are there. And all I'm asking for is just a 150-inch cut through so that I could actually pull my car into my space. From looking at all of my neighbors, have either a driveway or a parking space, and it's directly across from what was previously 56 Union was the name of the restaurant, and it's now the Yacht Club. And they not only have their own parking lot, but they have like a 7 or 8 car Meridian parking space directly in front of the house. I don't believe it'll affect my neighbor's parking. And the fence already is set up so that it's a gate. Michelle just never followed through on this process, which I'm trying to do right now. I don't. Thank you.
And Ms. Mooney, can we maybe go to the next page in the packet? So, and thank you for providing this information. I mean, I think that your proposed curb cut at 12 feet wide, one of the considerations is that it's going to leave that other parking spot at 13 feet, which is really too short for any vehicle, or maybe a Mini Cooper or something, but 13 foot's a pretty short vehicle. So I think there's some concern with that essentially you'd probably be effectively eliminating parking across, from the corner or from that existing yellow line there, and then it leaves the other one at 25 feet, which is a little bit long. It's a bit longer than any other vehicle, so it kind of really breaks up that the on-street parking in that area.
I wonder, sorry to interrupt, I
Go
wonder
ahead.
if tiny existing parking that what we see on the top of this thing, that yellow line, I wonder if we could even just kill that and that would extend that, because it's just at the corner of my house and you see at 53 Union there, it's not really serving much purpose anyway. So that would allow for that parking space that you're saying is too short, or probably make it very usable.
I think that would be helpful, at least in understand, that if you weren't actually, because at this point, it's somewhat a proposal to eliminate, as I see it, 2 on-street spots if you're rendering another space ineffective.
Yeah, no, and I see that obviously parking is some, is a challenge on the island. I want to be, yeah. If that could make this happen, that would be fine. And I think that that's probably like 2 or 3 feet of yellow line there, maybe 5.
I think that has to do though with the road coming down so that people could see to the right.
That actually, no, that's just the
That's the next house over.
yeah, that's just between their parking lot and
Oh, right, so they can get
Yeah.
out of their driveway.
Yeah.
That's probably the purpose of that yellow line, I would
Yeah,
say.
and if you eliminate that little bit of yellow line, are we gonna have 53 Union Street back here next month saying now I can't get in and out of my driveway?
I would,
yeah,
I
okay.
think so. I think that's what I was
Okay.
trying to understand. I think that's exactly the point. So thank you, Mr. Brandon. We'll open it up for a discussion by the work group. Does anybody have any and again, do you have that, sorry, I didn't mean to open back up. I have one other thing, which is typically the policy of the practice has been that to recommend the elimination of one spot would be on the basis of creating an additional off-street spot. So that is, if you were getting rid of one, you'd be creating 2. Do you have a plan for what your parking would be on site? Would it be just one space, or did you have enough room to create 2 pull-in stacked spaces? And maybe
I do have enough room that I could make it 2 deep. I didn't know if that was had any effect on whether I thought making it just 1 would be subtler on the property, but I could certainly make it 2 deep for sure. Yeah.
Thank you. Work group members? And go ahead, Chief.
It's just kind of a wild thought here. Have you considered maybe having your driveway or parking down there on the other end of that lot where the existing yellow line is down by York Street?
Yeah, my neighbor Penn Austin, who lives 1 York Street or just up on York Street, got like metal posts there because cars are they turn around that corner and they rammed into everyone's porch right there. So she was saying that would be a nightmare, but I had considered that as well too.
I mean, that's that little stretch of Union in front is, I mean, it's granted it's busy, but it really isn't busy comparatively to the main Union Street out there. And I know what you're saying about the parking. I mean, I think you're entitled to have a curb cut for parking, but the question is, how can it best be done without impacting parking? And if you could do it down at that end, you wouldn't impact on-street parking at all.
Yeah.
And I think you wouldn't be in front of this board. You would simply be applying to the DPW for a driveway access permit, and you'd
Right.
be good to go. I think as long as they didn't have a concern with it.
Wouldn't I end up, I just imagine that my car would be like a constantly being hit and then I would have.
If it was on your property, why would it be
On your
hit?
property. And there's a fence there, I thought.
Yeah, I would have to open up wouldn't I bring, so I would just bring the fence in and have the car. I guess I could have a fence in front of it. Penn doesn't have her car, she just has like a cut in, she just pulls alongside that and then, her car just everything gets hit on this thing. I'm just.
Yeah,
A real blind area, but.
I'm looking at this drawing here. Is that a hydrant? Is that what that says?
There is a hydrant
Yeah.
right, yeah.
Oh, that might change it. That changes things then.
I think that would be the challenge is could you get in the picture that we're looking, could you squeeze between the white ball, why that looks wide enough to me for a parking space. I mean, not a parking space, but a curb cut to get in there. It is within 25 feet of this intersection though, so there's a zoning bylaw issue there.
Yeah,
I think that would be the issue.
Not sure, yeah, it feels much smaller when you actually see it in person. I think the photographs making it look.
yeah.
It seems if we were to support the current proposal, I think I believe you'd have to show the 2 spaces, you'd have to show your proposed driveway, and it would have to create in order to go to the, again, be an I saw that you were on at the beginning of our meeting, so you understand that we are advisory to the select board, and in order for them to I think support the on-street space, it's the elimination of the space. It's typically been if you get rid of one, they want to see you add 2 on the property. So if you could provide a plan showing a driveway with a stacked double space, it might change things. And you've said your willingness to do that, so I think that our approval could be conditioned on that if the group was so inclined.
I apologize. I didn't realize about the 2 space. I thought it'd be preferential to just make it for 1.
Well, you
but-
guys probably competing interests. You might have HDC or somebody that doesn't want the 2, or that sort of a thing. I think from a staying in our lane, which is traffic safety and parking considerations, that's been the general approach. Is that if you're going to get rid of 1, it's theoretically 2 space. It's a net positive if you could create an additional space to get vehicles off of the road. So
I guess I would say it's the exact same drawing. It would just go deeper, right?
understood. I don't want to hold you up if that's where we're gonna end up. Does anybody else have anything further, or would there be a motion to either recommend or suggest a curb cut and a drawing at the end of the road where there's existing parking? Like I say, I think that might run you afoul of you might need some relief for the distance for the intersection. Or no action, or approval based on providing 2 on-site spaces.
Mr. I'd make a motion to approve condition to providing 2 off-street parking spaces.
I would
Thank you.
second that.
And there's a second. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Burns, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Rowland,
Aye.
Chief Pittman,
Aye.
Chief Cranston,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Thank you, Mr. Brandon.
Thank you so much.
And we'll move on to review a request for the rideshare drivers to create a designated pickup space for rideshare vehicles at the Highline Ferry. Do we have anybody online for that? I'm not seeing them. This seems like a big one.
Can I just say that this was delivered to the town administration office? There's no contact information. Most of the signatures I couldn't make out.
Yeah, I don't see how we really act on this. It seems like such a big issue, Chief Pittman.
Yeah, and I think it goes against the town's interest in the fact that we regulate taxis, and basically for that, we give them parking or taxi spaces. Here, ride shares, we have no ability to regulate. We have no control over them. It doesn't make any sense to give them town space for something. And honestly, most of them that are creating the problem down there don't live here with the problem year round. They're just opportunists taking advantage of the big crowds.
So unless I hear that someone wants to take action on this, it seems like they'll just be taking no action.
Mr. Chair, if it's okay, to Chief Pittman, spitballing, the possibility of a hybrid taxi pickup drop-off lane, is that just not
I
feasible?
think you would create World War III between the
Yeah, that's right.
Uber.
I can tell you from the airport and my experience out there, there's some, real challenges and, trying to keep the peace.
Yeah, and could you elaborate on that just briefly? I don't want to sidetrack this too much. Could you elaborate on the airport experience and just how that was
So they
allowed?
create, again, sort of different sets of regulations, but created, a space further away for the rideshare drivers. And there's been recent legislation, and the airport's actually just in the process of establishing contracts to then collect additional fees from them, which wasn't previously allowed. So Chief Pittman's, the airport actually is able to accommodate them and then working towards that with available space. And then there's going to be a fee that's associated with that, and none of which is really happening or available, I think, down in the in the town lot. I think the airport is a little bit different of an animal, but your user groups are the same. So there some similarities, but I think that to try to institute any kind of a system like that down in this area, I'm not sure how you would get to that between the private property and then on town owned land to do that. Or the right of ways. I think it would be it'd be a very big challenge.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll note on that is like just looking at this area and studying it, that was part of the discussion, is the accommodating ride share and the variety of pickup drop off operations that are happening around the ferries. And I think without a bigger look at the entire area around Strait Wharf, and this is going to be a hard problem to solve without looking at the whole area.
Yeah, I think it's going to be it's more of a global type of a situation down there. So, okay, we'll take no action on that and move on to the request for a deer crossing sign on Bartlett Road. I don't see anyone from the public here to speak on that, though we had a couple of emails from Ms. Swain. Is there any support to add deer crossing signs to Bartlett Farm, or no, to Bartlett Road? Hearing none, so we'll take no action on that unless someone has support for that. And we'll move on to the request for a new curb cut at 15 Cliff Road. Mr. Burns, I'm going to turn this one over to you and recuse from this matter. I wasn't involved with this application, but it is a project that I've been working on. So I'll let you handle this one. I don't see anyone online to represent it.
Was on earlier. But you're right, I'm not seeing them anymore.
Yeah, so Erica, just to clarify, just to make sure that I understand this is just a relocation of a yellow line from.
That is that's my understanding. So there's an existing yellow line at this garage right here, and they want to move it, I believe, to where this gate area is, because they're doing they're changing things on site.
Yeah. That's how I read it. Any comments from the group? Hearing none, is there a motion to,
Make a motion to approve.
is there a second?
Second,
Thank you.
Sorry, who
And,
was that, Mickey?
yes.
Thanks.
all right, so just going down the line here, Chief Pittman,
Aye.
Mickey Rowland,
Aye.
Ray Sylvia,
Aye.
Michael Cranston,
Aye.
and I'll vote aye as well. Thank you all. Mr. Chair, the meeting's yours.
Thank you. And that'll move us on to this standing request that we've had to change Surfside Maya Comet Road, Surfside Drive to a four-way stop, as well as look at safety improvements, I think, in the area. I know we have Mr. Flaherty still on, and Mr. Burns, have you had any time to sort of look or have any suggestions related to this intersection?
Yeah, I did look at a traffic study that was done in relation to the Surfside Crossing 40B, where this intersection was looked at. The recommendations there, one was really minor, was resetting a stop bar so that there's a separation from the bike path to the stop bar and allows, I guess, potentially safer crossing of the bike path. For vehicle operations, that report recommended consideration of a circle for this location and did not look at a four-way stop and analyze that. So that would be something that would need to be done, is to do a traffic study that considered a four-way stop at this intersection. There are failing level of services from both approaches. Definitely from my comment, I believe from Surfside Drive as well. So it's a lot of delay there for those trying to pass through the intersection. And this is a hot spot for crashes. And Chief Pittman, you could probably verify this, but this is showing up in Mass DOT's crash database as a crash cluster. So it's definitely a safety issue, and probably something we would look at, just so everyone knows. We received a grant for a Safe Streets for All, or Safe Streets for All grant for to do a safety action plan. And this would be one of the intersections that we would look at for that, and do more of an exploratory consideration of different safety improvements for this intersection. So that's where it stands now. Again, the traffic study recommended a roundabout, and then moving the bike path away from the intersection so there's safer crossing. And we'll look at it in the future as part of the safety action plan this next year.
It's good to hear. There's some, get it on the list. And Mr. Flaherty had a suggestion that perhaps in the interim, we could add a no parking sign or two in this area. I believe that Surfside Road is already, nice to see the helmet, that it's already no parking either side. So perhaps, I don't think we're taking away or doing any different, but perhaps in this area, we could add a sign that says no parking either side. If everyone thought was amenable to that, and Mr. Sylvia thought that's something we could do. You can see where people are wanting to, I think they're pulling over and parking there. It might help to make enforcement.
They park
We've had
there
a lot of issues
all
there.
the time.
Yeah. So is there, Mr. Silverio, are you okay with that?
Yep, I can do that.
Mr. Flaherty, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, like I said, I understand probably about 2 years ago, there was talk about straightening out that intersection also. I'm not sure where that stands.
I think that all falls into the same study that Mr. Burns referred to.
Okay, now, do we have a rough time frame on how long this study is gonna take place? Like I said, we got the intersection there. Of course, everybody's riding their bikes, their electric bikes. They don't pay any attention to the stop signs on the bike path. You've got the NRTA bus stops at Surfside Drive right there, plus on Surfside Road. Plus, there's a new house going up there at the corner, which is probably gonna cause parking problems. And they're parking at the dog park overnight already also, so. But I know that's not your concern. I'm trying to get in touch with the land bank about the overnight parking at the dog park.
Right. Well, I think we start with the no parking signs and defer to Mr. Burns in terms of long-term transportation planning and where that might fall. And
I'll get in touch with Mr. Burns then. talk to him.
okay, thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Flaherty. Appreciate the input.
Hey, Ray, if you put signs up in this area for no parking, can we also get them closer to that? How do you say that, that new little thing where Dr. O'Neill's house was?
Activa,
Heck, yeah.
that's horrible
There's
across the street
all
there.
those people,
Yeah,
there's so many cars in there and there's so many units, they're just using the shoulder as parking.
agreed.
Yeah, and we've had to fix that. We've had to fix that location with Phil too, because it's just worn out between the bike path and the road.
Yeah.
Right.
Once it starts eating the road, we're gonna have an even bigger problem.
Yeah, maybe we could do a sign there and a sign the other one, and hopefully it will maybe help as and or make enforcement easier if if an officer was to see someone parked right in front of the no parking sign. And
We're up there all the time writing tickets.
yeah, so
Practically every night they go up there because those people from those building apartments are parking their work trucks there
right, thank you.
almost nightly. But the thing that would help there would be a split rail fence installed along that stretch of road. That would keep them from parking there.
How would we go about that? Is that something the DPW might have in a budget, or like, is that I think that's that's pretty much what happened on the other side of the road when they were parking there, and I never knew whether that happened
That
from,
actually, I thought that was installed by the owner.
I wasn't sure if that
It
happened
wasn't,
by the
it
owner
wasn't
or,
done by the town.
yeah, in the right of way, but still it helped. So does the DPW have a budget or ability to install a couple pieces of split rail there, or how would something like that go forward? So, yeah,
I can run that by my directors and see where we stand on that.
Super.
We do have some split rail. That's a pretty long stretch. It might not happen until the
Yeah.
fall.
Well, I think it's long-term, but
Yeah.
okay. Thank you. And is there any other, does that cover that topic for now? Anybody have anything further? Is there any other business not reasonably anticipated 48 hours in advance of the meeting, or topics anybody would like to see on the next agenda? I'm hearing none. We have approval of the minutes from the 25th. Is there a motion to approve those minutes? Well, I think we can consider them adopted by unanimous consent if nobody has any objection. And is there a motion to adjourn? Motion's made and seconded.
Sorry, who seconded?
Second.
Mr.
Mike.
Burns.
Oh.
Mr. Burns, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Sylvia,
Aye.
Mr. Rowland,
Aye.
Chief Cranston,
Aye.
Chief Pittman,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. Thank you. Thank you, Erica.
Thanks.
Take
Thank
care.
you
all.
all.
Bye.
Aye.